I will call this meeting to order.
Holy buckets.
Do we have any citizen or public comments of anything that's not on the agenda for tonight? Seeing none, I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. We'll start with the consideration of the approval of the agenda.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Next is consideration of the approval of the minutes of the May 28th and June 3rd meetings. Any questions on the minutes?
I would so move.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Minutes are approved, and the next is the approval of the consent calendar. Anybody have any questions on the consent calendar?
So move.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Next is business of the mayor, just a couple things. Saturday, two groups from AARP will be up here attending the Whitewater Festival. We are going to have they'll actually present us with our certificate as a livable community, and we're going to do like a little presentation out here between City Hall and the library, hopefully weather permitting, of that presentation. We're going to try and get some coverage from that, and so those two bus loads will be here, but we certainly would invite people from town to come along there. I think AARP is sending out some information to their members in town, but everyone is certainly welcome and encouraged to attend that if you can. Mark Wicks is going out to excuse me, Maine this week for the National Convention of the AARP Livable Communities, and the focus this year is on rural livable communities. So the state director asked Mark if he would like to go along with him, so Mark's going to do that. So that'll be a good opportunity for us to get some information on what this actually all means for us. That event, parts of that are also going to be live streamed on Thursday and Friday too. So I know I've got an email about that, and I would guess that other people, if you're interested, we could get you that link so you can see what they're talking about out there too, if you have any interest in that. So just let me know. The other information on the business of the mayor is a proclamation tonight for Relay for Life. I see we have some relayers here. So Connie, do you want, or who wants to approach and tell us all about your event?
Good evening. My name is Connie Burney, and I am the 2019 Floyd County Relay for Life event leader. And these are some of my committee members behind me. We would like to invite you to join us Friday, June 28th, between the hours of 5 and 9 in Central Park for our 23rd annual Floyd County Relay for Life. All of us here have a different reason for being involved. Relay for Life is a life-changing event that brings together more than 4 million people every year to celebrate the lives of those who have battled cancer, remembered loved ones lost, and empower individuals and communities to fight against the disease that takes too much from too many. This year alone, it is estimated that there will be 18,000 new cases of cancer diagnosed in Iowa alone. We have an estimated 960 people in Floyd County dealing with cancer right now, and unfortunately, we will lose approximately 45 of them this year alone. The American Cancer Society Relay for Life is helping save lives and creating a world with less cancer and more birthdays by helping people stay well and get well, by finding cures and by fighting back. This year, we are also excited that Endless Summer will be joining us in this fight, and we would again like to thank you for your support of the relay. Please join us Friday night, June 28th in Central Park, and if it does happen to rain, we will be up at the high school. Thank you.
So what else do you have going on besides Endless Summer?
We have a silent auction, we have food vendors, we have the Boy Scouts and their pedal cars. We have luminaries. We will have a ceremony for both our survivors and a luminary ceremony. Pub crawlers will be there with their adult beverages. So we'll have lots of fun. The 4-H group will be there. They'll be doing popcorn and root beer floats and all kinds of fun stuff. So.
Good deal. Thank you all
Oh, and the
for-
National Honor Society will be doing games for the kids. All the games are free. Pedal cars there'll be a cost, but the games themselves will be free.
No, thank you all for everything you do. Very worthwhile cause.
Thank you.
I'd so move.
Second.
Any further questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager. Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Proclamation is approved. I'll come down and we'll read it. Stand over here. So whereas the American Cancer Society is a nationwide community-based voluntary health organization dedicated to eliminating cancer as a major health problem by preventing cancer, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and service. And whereas the lives of many of the citizens of Charles City and Floyd County have been touched by cancer, and thus they have been drawn to support the continuing research that will find a cure for this disease. And whereas Relay for Life is a community-wide event that generates support for families who have suffered the death of a loved one because of cancer, and whereas the Survivors Walk during Relay of Life event celebrates with those who are living with cancer and offers them hope for continued health, and whereas the Luminaria ceremony honors the memory of loved ones who have died of cancer, as well as those who are cancer survivors. Therefore, I, Dean Andrews, Mayor of Charles City, do hereby proclaim the Relay of Life event to be held on June 28th, 2019, and may the citizens of Charles City and Floyd County support this event with great enthusiasm so the cure for cancer can be found. So we know, as Connie said, almost everybody has been touched in some way by cancer, friend, family, themselves, whichever. So it's obviously a continued fight that we're battling, but hopefully we're making progress, and events like this are the way that we make progress. So thanks, like Delane said, thanks for all you guys do every year to promote this event. I will give you that to take then. Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Thank you. Thanks.
Is that what it did? How come you said I shouldn't say anything?
Does that mean the meeting's over?
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
I thought I was the clumsiest one. Add to the list of things falling apart at City.
I didn't fall down that time, so that was good for me.
Yeah.
Pick your
You
battles.
might wish that you had.
All right, moving right along. Next is a public hearing on the SRF loan for the wastewater reclamation recovery facility. We will open the hearing. Do we have a filing of affidavit of publication?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have we received any written comments?
I did not. Did anybody else?
No, I did not.
Any oral comments tonight?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Hey,
Do we have any discussion on this topic
Well-
for tonight?
we do have representatives from Fox Engineering here that could speak on this, and I thought we were going to have someone from the DNR here as well, but I don't see her. So,
I could give a little status update and stuff. Start
why
with
don't
that.
you please,
Be good, thank you.
see if you can fix the microphone.
I don't think I'm going to try. So I'm Lance Alders, Fox Engineering. I'm the project manager for the current wastewater project we're working on. So just an update on where things are at. We've submitted it to the DNR for a construction permit. And this SRF public hearing was held tonight. And 30 days from now, that'll clear the environmental review. So at that time, we should be able to get a construction permit from the DNR and it can go out for bid. And so earlier today, we met with Steve and John and Dan and talked through a schedule. So looking for a bid opening, I think we came up with August 8th or something like that, potentially. So Steve's got it potentially on the agenda for the next council meeting to set the bid dates and set the schedule for that. I don't know, the elephant in the room with it, of course, is we found out last week that Simply Essentials is closing. So this has really nothing to do with the public hearing, but I don't know if we had any questions or want to talk anything, how that might impact anything. I can try to answer your questions there. And
Thank you for bringing that up, because I've had some people approach me about that. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do with the plant now that, that deal is closing? So I think we should get that information out to people.
Yeah, and we did, and we, that was something we talked about, to some extent today during our status update meeting, just to touch, we'd set this a few weeks ago to get in and touch base and everything, and then, of course, this change came along with Simply Essentials. So, we talked about, are there areas, what's the updated estimate for the plant? Simply Essentials was going to be, a substantial part of revenue for the project. They're not the reason we're doing the project alone, but it was part of the deciding factors that we had as far as when we decided whether we wanted to move forward to design the plant. And so there's a certain amount of capacity that's built in there for whether it be Simply Essentials or whomever. So we had that discussion on what aspects of the plant can we possibly look at, maybe changing, altering, reducing, and there's possibly some areas we could look at trimming here and there. Whether it be like the actual the oxidation ditches that do the treatment. Right now we have 2 large ditches that are planned to go in. And we talked about we could reduce and move down and do 2 smaller ditches, but then that doesn't necessarily set us up good for the future if we have to add another ditch. We have plans to add a 3rd ditch as demand needs it. But if we build 2 smaller ones, we can't enlarge those smaller ones. And so if a company comes in to fill that space, we would be at a spot where we wouldn't be able to necessarily readily handle that load. The equalization basin, that really doesn't have anything to do with the processing. That's more of a flow issue for storm events. We talked a little bit about the reed beds. Maybe the reed beds, we could do a smaller portion of that. That's about $1.7 million of the estimated cost of the project. If we cut that in half, maybe we save $700,000. We'll have more expense though hauling sludge, because the idea with the reed beds is then we don't have to haul the sludge. The sludge just naturally drains out through the reed beds. So we'll have added costs with hauling, whether it be with our Terrigator or contracting that out. So, we don't, how much are we really saving there? But, looking at the cash flow scenario right now, we need to do some additional changes now to move, on moving forward as far as what's going to take to make the numbers work. Because that Simply Essentials is about $450,000 a year in revenue that we won't have. So we did also talk today about timeline, scheduling, and we did open that up a little bit to give them a little extra time to the process to help encourage bidders. I know they've had some interest from several firms that are out there that are going to be looking to bid on the project potentially, so that's good news. But it's hard to cut too much out of this project unless we really make some wholesale cuts, which really then kind of hurt us in the long run. So at this point, I think maybe the best way forward is to keep going as is, maybe make some small tweaks here or there. Even the lift station, the Chautauqua lift station, we have that as a city council goal to get that done. That's not currently in the estimate. That's something that we're planning on doing an alternate bid on. That could be around $300,000. as a standalone project, it's pretty small, so getting somebody to come in and do that as a standalone is difficult to, is a difficult approach to take, because we might not get any bidders on it, so then that really lends itself to saying we should, include it in this if we can. So in a lot of ways, it's really hard to make too many cuts on this, because we don't know what might come in to replace that plant up there. Even if that doesn't get filled up with another processor, we're gonna need that capacity elsewhere in town, somewhere, somehow, presumably, hopefully, if we wanna continue to grow. So, without knowing how the rates are gonna be affected by this change at this point, it's hard for me to say with any exact terms, but I almost think we need to keep our eye on the prize and continue forward in a large way, so. And hopefully we get some good bids in. Hopefully it comes in a little bit, less, you never know, I guess. But, the estimate we're working on right now with our financing is about 19.5 million. And so we're close to, by the time you figure in the existing cash we have on hand that we're transferring to the project, the land we purchased, and some of the other things, we're right at about $18 million, thereabouts. So it's a little bit less than what our pro forma has in it, so that helps some, but probably not enough. So that's kind of my thoughts right now as far as recommendation to the council. I know this is obviously something we've been working on for the last several years. It's something we know that's been coming for the last, 15, 20 years. So I guess at this point, I think we continue on.
What's the anticipated timeline of construction?
You want to talk to that, Lance, a little bit?
Let me grab my notes that I wrote down.
Sure. The plan is to take bids here by August 8th, look to approve those at that second meeting in August, give them the notice to proceed of early September, and then from there, we're going to give them,
Looks like spring of 2021, we talked about having the main process, the new process up and running, and then give the contractor until the end of December of 2021 to demo the old parts of the plant and finish the other non-critical parts of the facility as far as the new process goes. And then wait all the way until May of 2022 to do the site restoration, because we gotta wait for the seeding season to come back around in the spring. So that winter of 2021 to 2022 might not be a lot of activity at that point, but want to give them opportunity to finish the grading and get seeded and before we close out the project.
we're trying to give as much breadth there as we can to encourage bidders and not constrain anybody too much.
That's right. Kind of the primary reason I was asking about it, though, is to kind of say that there is some time here to allow, hopefully, something good to happen on the north end of town with somebody coming back in and things like that. We've got a couple of years here to work through this thing while this plant continues on. And my answer to people that have asked about it is kind of what you said. I said it in a lot fewer words. I said this thing has been coming for a while, and it's a good thing, and we need the capacity, and that wasn't the only reason we're doing it. So we really just kind of need to keep going. But if something were to not come back into that plant ever, then it's going to come back and kind of haunt all of us somewhat. But hopefully that's taking a real short-sighted view of things, that somebody comes in there and we get more.
And we also have we're working on the new certified site on the south edge of town too. So, we have two sites of potential expansion. So like you say, I don't think we can cut ourselves short and say, well, let's not do very much now and then go, oh, I sure wish we would have made that like we were planning on doing it. So.
Yeah, because once you pour the concrete for those oxidation ditches, you can't expand them. I mean, so to build them smaller just would be a bad idea in general. Probably.
Of course, a really terrible option would be that we decided to do that and then someone does move in. Then it's a real fix.
Keith, you had some?
Yeah, I'm a real believer in what Delane is saying. I mean, we're looking here at the future. We aren't looking at the history of the last 5 minutes. While I've been in town, that plant's run 2/3 of the time probably, maybe half the time that I've been here, plus the new additions that we're looking at. you know, if we constrain ourselves now, we've made a permanent or pretty long constraint for a long time. It would be nice to be ready for what comes on it. So I would be really supportive of moving forward what we have. We can use it for different stuff. It doesn't have to be just for this plant. I'd like to see us go forward with it and get her done. In a couple of years, we may have another plant already sitting here by the time this is ready, if somebody hurries.
Yep.
Whether it's this plant or whether it's one at the south edge of town, certainly would be our goals.
I think it'd be cost efficient now to, if you might say, look at a little overbuilding because of the circumstances, because I think we need to have that for the future. And it's a risk well accepted, I think, because we'll need it down the road. And I'd rather have it now than to have to come back 5 years from now and try and pick up what we're going to run short, what we would cut short now. So and again, the rates are good on financing, so it's a good time to do it. But I think we ought to proceed ahead and, you know, cut back where you can feasibly cut back without any major problems. But I think we ought to go ahead with it.
Anybody else, comments, questions?
I concur. I'll make it short.
Ditto.
Nice you guys were able to be here today to kind of come and fill us in a little bit too, so the timing was good, I guess. As long as we're talking about timing, huh?
Was there any concern, I guess, with the DNR, or what perspective were they going to bring to the discussion tonight, I guess?
I think they were just going to share with us that, you know, that they've done all the background work as far as the environmental impacts of what the project will be doing on site, and also what the processing will be doing, kind of what the overall environmental impact will be, and
Okay.
that they've checked with all the different entities and organizations that are affiliated, and everything is checked out, and
Okay.
we're at a good place to move forward.
Are all their permits in place and approved, or?
So,
Not yet.
for instance, you know, they have us do it, but we have to check with the DNR floodplains, the Corps of Engineers, the State Historical Preservation Office, any local tribes that were historically in this area, Indian tribes. And so they do a lot of that, and then they have us check on some. So my understanding is that's all checked out. The only one we're waiting on is the DNR floodplain section. They keep promising they're going to look at it. That was in May, then June, and June's rapidly being done. But what we expect their answer is going to be is that it's not our jurisdiction. You got to get a floodplain permit from the city. We will look to John, and he will issue one, I hope.
Okay.
We heard the Corps of Engineers, the other big one we were waiting on. We did hear from them Friday. They've cleared the site for wetlands and those kind of issues. So,
Okay. Not hearing anything big as far
as far as I know, we haven't.
hurdles?
Anyone's received any. The DNR hasn't received any comments, as far as I know. I last heard from Jean Main, is the environmental specialist that we've been working with, and I was expecting she was coming tonight. I heard from her this morning. She asked me for some stuff from the Corps of Engineers that we got, and yeah, she hasn't said anything.
Hurdles and turtles.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Dan got anything he wants to add?
All right, moving along. Next is consideration of Resolution 8619, which is approving renewal of a contract for our transit services. Discussion.
Yeah, and this kind of follows along with what we talked about at our last workshop. We're looking to renew our contract with Circle K, who completed the first year of providing the day-to-day transit service for the city of Charles City, and then added the county service as well. Our agreement last year was, just kind of a shot in the dark as far as what would you do this for? And I kind of threw out a number, and they agreed to it. And so we said we'd look at that a year once we've, had about a year's worth of experience and actual costs, and kind of see where we come in at. And so what Circle K countered with was renewal from the $48,500 to an annual amount of $61,036.50. So we're looking to bump that up about $12,000 there from the previous year. I'd factored in about a 3% increase, just not knowing at budget time. It's going to be above that, obviously. But we do have a good cash balance in that transit fund that we can absorb that, and we have other expenses figured into the budget as well for repair and maintenance, which we may or may not incur. So I think we should consider that renewal with Circle K. It's a 1-year contract, which we'll look again at a year from now. One thing I will mention that is different from what we talked about last Wednesday is that the service days, what the existing contract has is a half day of operation on Christmas Eve. And one of the things that Tammy and I had talked about at some point along the way was possibly eliminating service on Christmas Eve, just because they had nobody use the service last year and felt it was kind of a waste of resources to be open on that half Christmas Eve. So that's something that we are looking to, the agreement that's on here shows the half day, but the one that we want to approve would be the one that has a full day of Christmas Eve off. Our expense on that is going to be, we'll have to cover a half day of holiday pay for our full-time driver, since we have a full-time driver. But other than that, we didn't have much activity there that day. There's no kids in school, foster grandparents aren't running, there aren't too many hair appointments on Christmas Eve type of thing. So we'll look to renew this agreement with that full day Christmas Eve off and that increase in annual payment paid monthly of $61,036.50.
I don't necessarily disagree with a half day on Christmas Eve, but would, Christmas or Christmas Eve, whatever day of the week it is, have any impact on whether they have people that take advantage of it or not?
Possibly. I was kind of back and forth on it, and we hadn't talked about it, and I just kind of forgot about it. And I thought, well, maybe we'll give it another try, because I thought, this is the first year that we're doing it. And so, maybe that was, people didn't think we'd be open on Christmas Eve, but I mean, the previous provider, they operated on, those days as well, so it wasn't as if transit is new in general.
Okay.
So I guess there is some experience there with the public and operating on Christmas Eve, and it just doesn't sound like there's been much demand for it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's,
I guess with that, that's, otherwise we're running all the time, except for those, specific days. So, but day of the week might have an impact possibly.
yeah, just to know.
Is that acceptable to NIAC? Because they had some input on some other days.
Yeah, actually, because we'll be looking at their contract renewal at the next meeting, because we have the city's agreement with NIACOG. And Brad, in reading through it, he saw that they had a full day of Christmas off. And so it's like, oh, Tammy had half day. So they actually had it changed in there to have Christmas Eve off. So yes, they're supportive of that change.
Any further?
Christmas Eve was on a Monday last year.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know if that'd make any difference or not.
You'd think that'd be a
Because that affected
Fairly
us
busy
here
day.
as well, and that was the first time since I've been on council that was a situation that came up for us too. So, just the fact of, other places getting an extended holiday weekend, if maybe that wasn't part of the reason.
Yeah,
That's so moved.
Is the community satisfied with the
Second.
job that we're doing with this?
I think overall they are. I think they'd like to have more access. I mean, they would like to have more buses, probably, because we have a backlog of kids that want to ride the bus. And it says if we don't have enough seating on the bus, it's just a timing. As far as being able to get people picked up and dropped off timely, we don't have enough buses in that respect. So I think the public would probably like to have more access, but I don't know that we've ever had more than 3 buses in the past. But that would probably be the only complaint I've heard.
Is there any negative feedback on how Circle K is managing this and
I have not
things
heard.
like that?
No, actually, I think they've done a fine job of really conveying how it's supposed to be run, charge people what they're supposed to be charged, and be accurate with everything. So the only negative complaints I have heard is that if people call and they want to get picked up and they can't because the buses are full. So,
And I think there's a lot of, especially at the beginning, there's a lot of that because people were used to just calling a taxi and having the taxi come, where now they've pretty much got it scheduled all day long. And so I think now that people know that, I think they're planning their schedules a little bit better also.
yeah, because I think they were starting some days as early as 6 o'clock in the morning before, and it wasn't supposed to start till 7, and because that's when people had their appointments. But that's they've been kind of holding that line, and I think the writers have adapted. So I think overall it's working pretty well. I mean, one of the biggest concerns I had was wanting to know when the Mason City route was going to start. Right from the get-go, that was one of the biggest concerns. And so, a couple months in, we added the county route, and that seems to be working pretty well. The bus they issue us is kind of shoddy for that. But, had a couple major repairs. More buses.
You got a motion?
Yes, a motion and a second vote.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
All right, next is consideration of Resolution 8719, which is authorizing and approving a loan agreement and providing for the issuance of $215,000 general obligation corporate purpose note. We'll have discussion on that one.
This is our annual one-day borrowing that we do. We have to get this all set up March of last year in order to levy for the debt service through the year. I've gone to all the department heads and received information on what they've actually spent as far as these items, and it comes up to the $215,000. Sent out to area banks for quotes on what they would charge for a transaction fee, and First Citizens came in at $75. They're the low, so we will execute this loan with them on the 25th of June. It's basically equipment. There's money in there for the Charlie Western Bridge. There's money in there for the demo and nuisance abatement. Equipment for the street department. Some work done on the Wildwood Bridge. Tornado siren replacement. Tree removal for both parks and street. Pool surface repair and golf course, the columns and the door repair out there in the clubhouse. And that is what brings up to the $215,000.
Any questions or comments? This is similar to what we have done other years.
We've discussed this. I move for it. 8719.
Second.
Any other questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
All right.
Resolution 8719 is approved. Next is the third and final reading of Ordinance 1132, which is amending Chapter 136 of the Sidewalk Regulations, 137 of Construction Permits, and 138 of Driveway Regulations. Discussion here.
Okay, yeah, this is the third reading of Ordinance 1132, and what the changes are, what they'll entail is the elimination of the licensing and bonding requirements for sidewalk construction. Currently, property owners that have sidewalk construction repair next to their property, what they have to do is either retain a licensed and bonded contractor or go through the licensing and bonding requirements themselves in order to get a permit to do that work. What this change will do is allow those property owners that have sidewalk repairs to do, they can make that repair without getting licensed and bonded. They'll still have to come in and get a permit, and what that'll do is let us know where and when the repair will be done. We'll go out, check the work, check the forms, the thicknesses, and the subgrade before they do the construction. Now, the council has approved the first and second readings of this, so I'd recommend council approve the third reading, and if the third reading is approved, I'd also recommend a motion is made that allows the clerk to publish the approved ordinance.
Questions? Like I say, we've had a couple of readings of this already.
Have we had any comments from anybody?
I have not received any comments.
I've had one individual thought it was a great deal. So
It's a good sign.
I'd so move.
Second.
Any further questions, comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
We'll have the third reading of ordinance 1132.
An ordinance amending chapters 136 sidewalk regulations, 137 construction permits and contractors licenses for curbing, paving, driveways, and sidewalks, and 138 driveway regulations of the Charles City Code of Ordinances by modifying the requirements for sidewalk repairs and construction.
Thank you. Next, we just need a motion then to adopt and publish ordinance 1132.
So moved.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager. Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Ordinance 1132 will be published. Do we have any miscellaneous correspondence tonight?
None, Your Honor.
Brad, any attorney's report for tonight?
Yes, just briefly, Your Honor. We talked in January about, there was an alley issue in Bart's Alley between two adjoining property owners and what action the city might consider taking to try to clean that up. Been in contact with both owners and their attorneys, and I'm not convinced that right now there's anything the city could do that would help address that issue, so we've just kind of said we'll sit tight unless and until the owners are able to come up with a proposal that they would like the city to consider, at which point we would move forward for the agreement of the owners. So, and unless and until then, we probably won't be having more discussion with council at any planning sessions.
Good. City clerk's report.
Our next planning session will be on June 24th. We will end it with a special meeting to go into a closed session for evaluations for Steve, myself, and for Brad. And that will be on the 24th.
Is that gonna be here?
It's going to be here, yes, it is, and that leads into what I was going to talk about next. We had someone that commented on the meeting that we had out at the fire station. I guess it wasn't clear that the whole meeting was going to be at the fire station. We had somebody that came here thinking that we were going to be at the fire station and then come back here. So I apologize for that error. So I have gone on there and changed that default at the top of that. It always says it's at City Hall. So I took that off for the planning session, so that'll cover our next mobile sessions, hopefully. But anyway, I apologize for that confusion. So we got it fixed now. So good to go. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Steve, any administrative report?
Yeah, I'll just mention that I know earlier today Trudy registered a few of us for the league conference this fall, so Trudy, Mayor, Michael, myself are all planning on attending. If anybody else would like to go, now's the time to let us know, because the room block will be filling up quickly. So let Trudy know, or myself know, if that's something you'd like to attend. Secondly, I just let you know, I emailed back to the developer on 500 North Grand today, Sean Fouch, and kind of conveyed some of our thoughts from the other night, so we'll see what he comes back with to see how we end up with that process. But hopefully I can hear back from him and have some further information to go forward with here for our workshop this coming Monday. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, I know we've been waiting to get the grass cut on South Grand out there by the entrances into town, especially with the AARP and their barbecue challenge and the whitewater thing happening this weekend. I've highly encouraged our contractor to try and get that done, and so I know Dirk was in contact with them, and they're gonna try and have that all trimmed up before Saturday. So that's all I have.
How about on South Main? Is that one going to get done again?
South Main.
The old Salisbury Baptist home?
Yep, we posted that again this morning. we're posting, if we haven't done it today, we're doing it very soon, because we confirmed the needed contact information on that, and so we'll be able to mow that here more readily. I think the Park and Rec Department will be able to mow it,
Okay.
and we'll just keep,
I'd say it'd be another nice one to have done before this weekend, because it's a pretty good intersection coming into town, and it's starting to look pretty,
Yeah.
it's not as bad as it was, but it's starting to look pretty shabby again.
right, well, the first time's always the longest and the most tedious, but
Right.
since we kind of changed our code that we can do one official
Right.
notice, and then after that, we can move forward with just a posting, that's helping us move a little bit faster, so, yep, that hopefully will get done before this weekend as well.
Very good. I think everybody has their evaluations in. I know I haven't gone through them yet on the site, but I'll do that this week, so we got those ready. Then the other question Steve had today, do we want their self-evaluations before that night, or if we just get those that night of what their comments on themselves are, is that adequate, or do we want those ahead of time also? I guess I don't remember how we've done it before.
Fine by me.
I couldn't remember, I just didn't know if I had to have something turned in.
Yes, I would like to have them ahead of time.
Ahead of time?
Yep, and I would like to have them typed if at all possible, if that's a issue.
That's probably smart for my handwriting, that's good.
So when would you like, so
Day or two before is fine, it's not a
if we get
push.
those by Friday, is that soon enough for our Monday meeting?
And if we don't get them, it's not the biggest thing in the world.
Is there any way to get a copy of whatever you submitted electronically, so you know what you put?
To the form.
I'll find out.
Do,
So you know what you put, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'll
sorry,
get
would you-
copies of all
I
of
just
them.
asked if there was any way to get a copy of whatever you submitted electronically as far as what you rated.
So you
because-
remember what your comments were?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember mine were scathing.
I think I had I think last when I got those, I think I maybe printed out
Yeah, that's,
what everybody did, so you have, because I guess I agree, it's nice to
Yeah.
have your own comments in front of you, because you kind of remember what you did put when you went through and filled it out. But I'll look on that website tomorrow and see what I can come up with.
okay. Question that Brad and I had, do we want Brad to fill out a self-evaluation form, or if he's a contract employee, is that different, or are we just gonna basically review, or what did the council desire?
to me, I guess I look at that as kind of a professional position, and I think it'd be nice to have a self-evaluation.
Okay.
I understand the whole contract thing, but we relied pretty heavily on him, so,
We're not looking at extensive comments, just,
yeah.
And that's really, for Brad's standpoint, that's a two-way street, because it gives us some feedback from him as to how he feels about the council and the approach we're taking and things like that. And it's a chance to do it behind closed doors and be kind of wide open, and don't need to beat anybody up, but it gives a chance to clear the air from here and there.
Okay. I'll modify the one I do in here.
okay? That would be good. Any board, commission, committee reports tonight? Not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Would so move, Your Honor?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Nice to see you come, Jerry. We were really missing you, buddy.
That's no problem.